You do it every single night, and you have no idea it's happening. Your lips drift apart in the dark. Your body spends the next 8 hours trying to undo the damage. That dry mouth you wake up with, that dull morning headache, that foggy first hour where coffee barely helps. I traced every bit of it back to one silent habit almost nobody talks about. And the fix cost you almost nothing. I found the trail inside a book published in 1862, written by a man who walked among nearly 50 native nations and noticed something the modern world quietly forgot. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how to stop this habit tonight using something you already have in your house right now. No doctor, no prescription, no monthly bill. Let me tell you how this started for me. It began with my wife elbowing me at 2 in the morning. She told me I was snoring like a freight train pulling up a hill. I brushed it off, but the next morning I woke up with a mouth so dry it felt like I'd been chewing sand, and a headache sitting right behind my eyes. That happened 3 mornings in a row. And I'm the kind of person who can't let a thing go once it starts bothering me. So I started digging. I wanted to know why a grown man who goes to bed feeling fine wakes up feeling like he lost a fight in his sleep. What I found underneath that simple question turned into one of the strangest trails I've ever followed, because the answer wasn't about my pillow, or my mattress, or how late I ate dinner. The answer was about my mouth. Specifically, that it was hanging open all night long. Now here's the part that stopped me cold when I first read it. Breathing through your mouth instead of your nose isn't just a small bad habit. It quietly changes your blood, your heart, your sleep, your teeth, and even the shape of your face over time. And most of us have been doing it, night after night, year after year, with nobody ever telling us it mattered. I didn't believe that at first either. It sounded like too much. How could something as simple as which hole you breathe through change that much? So I kept pulling the thread, and the deeper I went, the clearer it became that this wasn't fringe nonsense. This was buried knowledge that used to be common, and somehow slipped out of everyday life within a couple of generations. But before I show you the science, I have to show you the man who set me on this trail, because he figured most of this out more than 160 years ago without a single machine. His name was George Catlin. He was an American painter born in 1796, and he became famous for one thing above all others. Starting in the 1830s, he traveled deep into the American West and lived among Native American tribes when very few outsiders ever had. Over several years, he visited around 50 different nations. He painted their portraits. He sat in their camps. He watched how they lived, how they raised their children, and how they slept. And Catlin noticed something that he could not stop thinking about. The people he lived among were, in his own words, remarkably strong, straight, and free of the sicknesses that plagued people back in the crowded cities of the East. Their teeth were even, their jaws were wide, their posture was upright, and they almost never seemed to suffer the coughs, the deformities, and the chest illnesses he was used to seeing back home. So he asked, he watched, and he became convinced he had found one common thread running through all of it. These people guarded their breathing. Mothers were careful to gently close a sleeping baby's mouth if it fell open. They believed and taught their children that breathing through the open mouth invited weakness and disease, while breathing through the nose kept the body strong. Catlin was so struck by this that in 1862 he published a book about it. He first titled it The Breath of Life. Later editions carried a blunter title that I honestly can't forget. He called it Shut Your Mouth and Save Your Life. Now think about that title for a second. A man who spent years among people famous for their health and endurance summed up his entire conclusion in 5 words. Shut your mouth. And he wasn't being rude. He meant it literally. Keep your lips closed and breathe through your nose, and your body has a fighting chance to stay well. Here's the detail that got me. Catlin didn't just preach it. He lived it. He wrote that in his younger years he had suffered badly, coughing up blood, weak in the chest, the kind of man doctors of that era quietly expected to die young, and he claimed that training himself to breathe only through his nose, day and night, is what turned his health around and let him live into his 70s, which back then was a long life. But I'm a skeptic by nature. One traveling painter's opinion from the 1860s, no matter how sincere, is not proof. A man can believe anything. So I set Catlin's book down and asked the obvious question. Is there any hard, measured, modern science that backs up this old observation? Because if there is, then we lost something important. And if there isn't, then it's just a charming old story. So I went looking for the science. And that's where this trail went from interesting to genuinely shocking. The first thing I found sits in a laboratory in Sweden at a place called the Karolinska Institute. That name might sound unfamiliar, but you should know it because it's the same institution that awards the Nobel Prize in Medicine every year. These are not lightweight researchers, and in the 1990s, scientists there discovered something about the human nose that nobody had fully understood before. Your nose and the hollow spaces around it, your sinuses, are constantly producing a gas called nitric oxide. Now don't let the chemistry scare you off. Here's what matters. That little gas does something powerful. When you breathe in gently through your nose, you carry that nitric oxide down into your lungs. And once it's in your lungs, it helps open up your blood vessels and helps your blood grab hold of more oxygen from every single breath. Let me put a number on that, because the number is what made me sit up. Researchers found that nasal breathing, thanks in large part to this gas, can increase the oxygen your blood actually absorbs by somewhere around 10 to 18% compared to breathing through your mouth. Same air, same lungs, same effort, but up to nearly a fifth more oxygen delivered to your body simply because the air went in through your nose. Read that again slowly. When you breathe through your open mouth, you are leaving oxygen on the table with every breath all night long. For years. And your mouth doesn't make that gas. Your mouth can't filter dust and germs the way your nose does. Your mouth can't warm and moisten the air the way your nose does. When you breathe through your mouth, you're pulling in cold, dry, dirty air and sending it straight down your throat. That's the sandpaper feeling I woke up with. That's the sore throat. That's the way a mouth breather catches every cold that goes around. So now I had an old painter from 1862 and a Nobel-level institute in Sweden pointing at the exact same thing from opposite ends of history. That got my attention, but I still wanted proof you could feel. I wanted an experiment where somebody deliberately breathed through their mouth and measured what happened to their body, and I found one. And it's almost unbelievable that someone volunteered for it. But first let me stop and say something plainly, because I know how this goes. You might be thinking this sounds like it's heading toward some expensive gadget, some clinic, some supplement I'm about to sell you. It is not. Everything at the end of this trail is free, or close to it, and you already own what you need. Hold that thought, because it matters more than you know. Let me show you the experiment first. A journalist and researcher named James Nestor spent years investigating human breathing, and in 2020 he published what he found. But he didn't just read old studies. He teamed up with scientists at Stanford University and volunteered his own body for a test that honestly makes me wince. For 10 straight days, Nestor and another volunteer had their noses completely plugged shut, sealed. They were forced to breathe only through their mouths, 24 hours a day, sleeping and waking, exactly the way millions of people breathe every night without realizing it. And the whole time, Stanford scientists measured everything: blood pressure, heart rate, sleep quality, snoring, the levels of carbon dioxide in their blood. What happened to their bodies in just 10 days is the part I want you to hear. Their blood pressure climbed. In Nestor's case, it went up by around 13 points, which is enough to move a healthy man toward the danger zone. Their heart rate variability, which is a measure of how well your nervous system is coping, got worse, a sign the body was under stress. Their sleep fell apart. And the snoring? Nestor went from barely snoring at all to snoring for hours every night. One of them developed sleep apnea, where breathing actually stops and starts during the night within that short window. 10 days of mouth breathing pushed 2 healthy men toward real illness. Then they took the plugs out and went back to breathing through their noses, and within days nearly all of it reversed. The blood pressure came down, the snoring dropped, the sleep came back. Their bodies healed themselves once they were simply allowed to breathe the way they were built to breathe. I sat there and thought about the millions of people, maybe including you, maybe including me, who are running that exact same experiment on themselves every single night, not for 10 days, for years, for decades, and nobody ever told them it was doing a thing. So now the question that had been nagging me since the beginning came roaring back, and it changed shape. It stopped being, "Why does my mouth feel dry?" and it became this. If a painter knew in 1862, and a Nobel Institute confirmed it in the 1990s, and Stanford proved it in 2020, then why in the world did nobody ever tell me? Why isn't this the first thing they teach you? Why did this fall out of common knowledge? And that's when I started to see who benefited from you not knowing. Think about what a mouth breather buys over a lifetime. You wake up tired, so you buy more coffee and energy drinks. Your sleep is broken, so you buy sleep aids and pills. Your blood pressure creeps up, so that's medication. Your mouth is dry and your teeth suffer, because that constant dry air feeds cavities and gum disease, so that's more dental work. Your snoring drives you to expensive machines and clinics and mouthpieces. Your immune system takes a beating from all that unfiltered air, so you're sick more often, buying more remedies. Now imagine telling all of those people that a huge slice of their problem might be fixed by keeping their lips closed at night, for free. There's no product in that. There's no monthly bill in that. Nobody builds a business on a solution that costs nothing and that your great-grandmother already knew. I'm not saying anyone gathered in a room and plotted to hide it. It's simpler and sadder than that. And if you want to go even deeper on all of it, I've put the full trail into writing. The research, the history, the step-by-step methods, and the science behind why this works are all laid out in a series called First Fixes, Deeper Fixes, and the Full System 3 Levels of the Same Investigation, written for people who want to understand not just what to do, but why it was buried in the first place. You'll find it linked in the description below. If this trail has meant something to you, that's where it goes further. But first, let me finish showing you exactly why this got buried and what it costs you every single day. Free knowledge that keeps people healthy just doesn't get advertised. It doesn't get pushed. It doesn't have a marketing budget. And so, generation by generation, it quietly faded, while everything that costs money got louder and louder. The knowledge didn't get banned. It got drowned out. And that brings me to the part of this trail that is meant specifically for you. Yes, you, sitting in an ordinary home, on an ordinary budget, may be wondering if this is finally the point where I tell you to spend money. It's the opposite. This next part is the part you can do tonight, in your own bed, with things you already have. No purchases, no professionals. Let me walk you through it, step by step. The first thing you need to do is find out whether you're even a mouth breather in the first place, because a lot of people genuinely don't know. So here's a simple test I did myself. When you wake up tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, notice your mouth. Is it dry? Is it sticky? Is there a stale taste? Are your lips chapped? Do you feel a little headache forming? Those are the fingerprints of a night spent breathing through your mouth. Another clue is if you wake up needing to clear your throat, or if the person next to you says you snore. If any of that sounds like your mornings, you have your answer. Now here's the daytime training, because you can't just fix the night without also retraining the day. Right now, as you're listening to me, close your mouth. Let your teeth come apart slightly so your jaw is relaxed, but keep your lips gently sealed. Rest the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, just behind your top front teeth, where it naturally wants to sit, and breathe slowly and quietly in and out through your nose. That's it. That's the position your mouth is supposed to hold most of the day. It sounds absurdly simple, but here's why it works. Every hour you spend consciously breathing through your nose during the day trains the habit deeper, so your body is more likely to hold it at night. I started catching myself in the car, at my desk, watching television. My mouth was hanging open like a screen door for no reason at all, and every time I caught it, I closed my lips and went back to my nose. Within about a week, I noticed I was catching it less because it was becoming automatic. Then there's the breathing pace itself, and this is another free tool. Most of us breathe too fast and too shallow, sipping air quickly through the mouth. The research points toward slow, gentle nasal breaths, somewhere around 5 or 6 full breaths per minute, as the sweet spot where your body calms down and your blood chemistry balances out. You don't need to count obsessively. Just make your breath slower, quieter, and lower into your belly rather than high in your chest. Breathe in for a slow count of about 4, out for a slow count of about 6. Do that for a few minutes before bed and you're already nudging your nervous system toward rest. And if your nose feels blocked, don't give up and default to your mouth, because there's a trick for that too, and it costs nothing. When your nose is stuffy, breathe out gently, pinch your nose closed, and then slowly nod your head up and down a few times while holding your breath, until you feel a real need to breathe. Then let go and breathe softly through your nose. A lot of people find their nose clears within a minute or two because gentle breath holding triggers the body to open the nasal passages. I was stunned the first time it worked on me during a cold. Everything I've just given you is free. It's the daytime foundation. But the daytime is the easy part because you're awake and you can catch yourself. The real battle is the 8 hours when you're unconscious and have no control at all, and that is where the final answer of this whole trail lives. That's the piece that ties Catlin and Sweden and Stanford all together into one simple action you can take this weekend. Let me give it to you now. The oldest, simplest, and most direct way to keep your mouth closed while you sleep is to gently hold it closed. That's the secret hiding at the end of this entire investigation, and the modern name for it is mouth taping. Now, before you make a face, let me explain exactly what this is and where it comes from, because when I first heard the phrase mouth taping, I pictured something ridiculous and uncomfortable. It is neither. The idea is simply to place a small, light piece of tape over your closed lips before sleep, just enough to remind your mouth to stay shut, so your body defaults to breathing through your nose all night long. That's the whole thing. You are gently guiding your body back to the way it was designed to breathe. And here's the beautiful part. This is exactly what George Catlin described, watching those mothers do more than 160 years ago, closing a child's mouth in sleep so the body could grow strong. It's the same principle the Karolinska scientists explained with nitric oxide. It's the exact behavior that reversed James Nestor's blood pressure and snoring within days of unplugging his nose at Stanford. Every clue on this trail points to the same simple destination. Keep the mouth closed at night, breathe through the nose, let the body heal itself for free while you sleep. Let me tell you precisely how to do it safely, because the details matter and I don't want you doing this wrong. You do not use packing tape or duct tape or anything strong and sticky. You want a gentle, skin-safe tape, the kind sold as surgical paper tape or medical tape, the sort of thing many people already have in a first aid drawer. If you have a bandage roll of that soft paper tape at home, you already own what you need. You take a small piece, and many people prefer to place it vertically over the center of the lips rather than sealing the whole mouth side to side, so it feels less alarming and comes off easily. Some people gently fold a little tab at one end so it's simple to peel away. Before you ever tape at night, practice for 10 or 15 minutes while you're awake, sitting up, watching television, so your body gets used to the feeling and you prove to yourself that you can breathe comfortably through your nose. If your nose is congested, clear it first with that breath hold trick, and never tape. If you're sick with a badly blocked nose, or if you've been drinking, or if you have a condition that affects your breathing or your ability to remove the tape. Common sense rules here. The goal is a gentle reminder, not a seal you can't break. I started with the daytime nose breathing for about a week first, so my body was already leaning that way. Then I tried the gentle tape at night, and I want to be honest with you about what happened, because I was genuinely surprised. The first morning, I woke up before my alarm, not groggy, not with that sandpaper mouth. My lips were still closed, the little strip of tape was still there, and my mouth was actually moist, the way it's supposed to be. No headache. That was the first morning in longer than I could remember that I woke up and didn't immediately feel like I needed to recover from my own sleep. My wife told me a few nights in that the freight train had gone quiet. Not perfectly, not every night, but dramatically quieter. And that's the moment this stopped being research for me and became real, because I felt in my own body what Catlin was trying to tell people in 1862, what the Swedish scientists measured in the 1990s, what Stanford proved in 2020. It all came down to this small, free, almost laughably simple act that our great-grandparents understood and we somehow forgot. Let me pull the whole trail together now, so you can see the full shape of it, because when you see it laid end to end, it's genuinely stunning that this ever got lost. A painter named George Catlin travels the American West in the 1830s and 40s, lives among nearly 50 nations, and notices that people who guard their breathing and keep their mouths closed are strong, straight-toothed, and rarely sick. He's so convinced that in 1862 he writes a book and titles it "Shut Your Mouth and Save Your Life." For a while, people listen. Then the modern world speeds up. Cities grow. Convenience takes over. The old careful habits fade, and breathing becomes something nobody thinks about, because who has time to think about breathing? The knowledge slips underground, but it's not gone. In the 1990s, scientists at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden discover the nitric oxide your nose produces and prove that nasal breathing delivers up to nearly a fifth more oxygen to your blood. The old wisdom now has a molecule behind it. Then in 2020, James Nestor and the researchers at Stanford run the experiment on human bodies and watch mouth breathing raise blood pressure, wreck sleep, and trigger snoring and apnea in just 10 days, then watch it all reverse when the nose is unplugged. The proof is now measured, dated, and undeniable, and at the end of every one of those threads sits the same humble answer: close your mouth, breathe through your nose, and if your body won't do it on its own while you sleep, give it a gentle reminder with a small piece of tape you probably already have in the house. That's it. That's the buried treasure. It was known, it was lost, it was preserved by a handful of stubborn researchers, and now it's back in your hands. No monthly bill, no prescription, no machine humming next to your bed, just the way your body was built to work, handed back to you free, the way it always should have been. Here's what I keep coming back to. Something this simple, this cheap, and this powerful should be the first thing anyone tells you about your health. Instead, it took me weeks of digging through a book from the 1860s, a Swedish laboratory, and a Stanford experiment to find what a mother in a native camp knew in her bones 2 centuries ago. That's not an accident of history. That's what happens to any cure that nobody can put a price tag on. It doesn't get hidden in a vault. It just gets forgotten, because silence is cheaper than truth. If you're the kind of person who has always suspected that the most valuable knowledge, the stuff that actually keeps you well and keeps your money in your pocket, has quietly been pushed aside to make room for things that cost you every month, then you already understand what this whole trail was really about. You were right to be suspicious. This is proof. So let me ask you something, and I really want you to answer this one. When you wake up tomorrow morning, check your mouth the second you open your eyes. Is it dry and sticky, or is it comfortable? Tell me in the comments what you find, and tell me where you're watching from, because I want to know how far this forgotten habit has spread. And if you already knew about Catlin's book, or you've tried nose breathing yourself, I especially want to hear from you. If you believe, like I've come to believe, that real, useful, honest knowledge was allowed to disappear simply because no one could sell it back to you, then join the rest of us who are digging it up piece by piece and putting it back where it belongs, in ordinary hands, in ordinary homes. Subscribe and stand with the people recovering what was buried, because the next trail I'm following is just as strange. It starts with a common kitchen item that almost every home had 100 years ago, that quietly vanished from our shelves right around the time the first monthly bills for the same job started showing up. I found the year it disappeared, I found who replaced it, and once you see what it did, you're going to wonder how we ever let it go. I'll show you the whole trail next time. Keep your mouth closed tonight and breathe. Here's the thing. Though everything I just showed you was only the overview, inside the Timeless Ways circle, I walk you through the full nose-breathing protocol, night by night. And if something isn't clear, you ask me right there, and I answer you myself. A real person, not a machine. You belong with us. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen. Cancel anytime with one click. I'd love to have you.